Right folks, tonight is a special night. We find ourselves in Lincoln. It's 10 to 7 and there's a ghost walk starting on the top by the castle, which is where we are now, Sharon, at 7 o'clock, £7.50. There's a group of people already standing over there. We're getting involved. Come with us on this one. We don't know how this is going to turn out. Could be a bit spooky. There's one there.
There's one there, isn't it? Yeah.
Got it?
That's it.
Make sure you get my good side for the channel, yeah?
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's
lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
What did he say about the channel?
Make sure you get my good side, he said.
Oh, on the channel. He knows where we are then. Right, well, they run this about 4 or 5 times a week throughout the year, I think, Sharon.
Yeah, I think already it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday, I think.
Yeah, so there we go, look. That's where you pick it up, just on the top of the square here, by the Magna Carta pub over there, which is just over on that side there. And there's a mass of people here,
Yeah.
And as I say,
Their chips smell good.
yeah, and there's loads of food up. We've never been at Lincoln this late at night, so we don't know exactly what to expect. I hope you can see all right, because I've got no extra lighting. So, yeah, we're at the corner of Bowgate. There's a church here, and we're just where the entrance to the castle is. 7 o'clock prompt, I think. I don't know how long the tour lasts, but
No, he's got a lot of people here.
we're trying to stick with him because we want to hear what he's saying, obviously, about the we know about the pie shop, Chow, don't we? The haunted pie shop,
Yeah.
which is not far from here, is it?
Down there.
Just down the hill, yeah.
He looks that way.
We're,
It's the other way.
we're basically at the top of a steep hill at the moment.
I might borrow your headpiece, so that's very impressive.
I said, how many people normally do this? He said, nowhere near this amount, so it's obviously due to Halloween, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's £7.50 a head. I was just looking around seeing all these people here and said he's probably onto a good screw, but then you said, well, how does he know if they've all paid?
You got. I mean,
you don't get a
we've
ticket,
paid.
right?
Yeah, well, don't get nothing. You don't stamp your hand.
You don't
nothing.
get a ticket or
no.
anything, do you? So,
You could easily join in.
but that's dishonest though, isn't it?
Yeah, but no, I'm afraid there are dishonest people.
No, I'm not
there.
having that, Cher.
Oh, there is, Martin.
Surely everybody's like us.
What, dishonest?
No, honest. Unbelievable. Yeah, the old pub's come to light. I bet it's really spooky up here.
He's got
If
me
there
out
was
here,
nobody here.
standing in the cold. They're sitting up there in that pub eating a meal. What's wrong with this?
Don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
Oh, here we
and
go.
every proud pronoun in between, welcome to Lincoln Ghost Walk. Tonight we're going on a tour of the oldest part of Lincoln to find out some of the history, some of the mystery, some of the past, and of course some of the paranormal things that go on in the most haunted part of Lincoln. The tour begins over the castle gates by the cannon, so if you're ready and brave enough, please do follow me.
Shall?
I'm brave, yeah.
Let's get involved. I was going to bring my ghost meter, but I've tried playing about with it and the batteries weren't working properly.
There's a sign.
I know, well, it normally drains batteries, Sharon.
Yeah.
I haven't got any extra batteries today, so I'm hoping that things don't happen. So we're heading over to the castle now, which you can see just in front of all the crowd. A bit dark, I know, but there's the castle.
Halloween, it's not going to be bright.
Castle Hill pub just over there, Sharon, look.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little bit dark, folks, but hopefully you can hear us all right.
It's all part of it though, isn't it?
I've got it on low light. Let's try and sneak up the front, Sharon.
There's the public toilets.
Where? Oh,
there.
You've got to know where the toilets are, haven't you?
So welcome to Lincoln Ghost Walk. My name's Dan, I'm your ghost walker for this evening. And as we're going around tonight, any questions you may have, feel free to pop over and ask me. I know loads about Lincoln's history and the world of the paranormal. Dr. Howell, the judge, and his entourage, his staff, who was working at the local courts. Nowadays it's been used more recently, more regularly as a weddings venue, a conference centre, a place of accommodation. And the staff that have worked there over the years all have the same cautionary tale to tell. They will advise you it is not a good idea to spend too much time alone on the very top corridor, on the very top floor. Even the cleaning staff work in pairs in the top corridor. They say over the years they've witnessed a man in regal style clothing who dashes down the corridors, running from room to room, door to door, slamming the doors very loudly and sometimes slamming those doors repeatedly. So if there's no judge there in body, there's not a bad-tempered judge there in spirit. But when a bad-tempered judge was alive, he would have worked in the same place. They still work today, and it's not very far away. If you turn your attention to the castle gates just over here, now if you are in Lincoln for the next few days, you will find, after decades of petitioning, it now costs you lovely people no money to walk through these castle gates. You can walk on the grounds, sit on the grass, sit on the walls, enjoy the art installations, generally irritate the staff, and have a nice time. But if you are, what's the right term to use? supernaturally sensitive, you might want to avoid the roof of the far tower over there. That one's called Cobb Hall. And from 1816 to 1868, 3 people once a month were hanged on the roof of that tower. And the year was 2011. There was a woman called Lisa here in Lincoln. She was there with a sister having a family day out who had a niece, a little kind of baby in a pushchair, a little nephew, sort of 5 or 6 years old, that kind of irritating age. And they were having a lovely time in town, doing various things. They round off the day by doing the cathedral and then finishing off by doing the castle. Now, the way to keep the nephew in check was to say to him, if you don't put that down, you don't stop running around, you don't stop screaming and shouting, and you don't behave yourself, we're not playing soldiers on the castle wall. And that worked like a charm. They had a great time. And they came to make good on their promise. They went up on the castle walls. They started at the far end. They worked their way around. Now, when I'm on the castle wall, the one thing I really enjoy doing is going up on these parapets and sort of sticking my face between the parapets, having a good look at the view and a bit of a nosy into people's back gardens. And that's what everyone was doing, having a nice time. And they got to Cobb Hall just over there. And one member of the team wasn't joining them at the parapets, and that was the nephew. He discovered the access point on the flat wooden roof up there. A stairwell goes about 15 foot down inside the actual tower itself. And he discovered if you hang off the handrail at a certain point, you were sort of dangling 15 foot over a sheer drop, which was very exciting. So he was having a very nice time. Lisa turned around to see what the nephew was doing this time and let out quite a piercing shriek when she saw a woman wearing a dirty white old-fashioned smock running across the roof towards the nephew, hands outstretched, a very evil and determined look on her face, as though she was about to push the boy down the stairwell. Lisa ran across the roof, she grabbed the boy, she pulled the boy from harm's way, the boy was okay. She turned around to see who this attacker was, this assailant, and this weird, evil, strange woman had quite simply vanished altogether. Now, as you can imagine, that's the end of their time inside Lincoln Castle. But when you have a small person in a pushchair, there is a game called putting the pushchair in the boot of the car. And Lisa was doing that with her sister on a big car park on the way far side over there. And as she was doing this wonderful, very benevolent job, she turned around to look at the castle, and she swore she heard a woman's voice calling from that tower, shouting the words, "Come back, come on your own, Lisa, return to me." And she's never ever been back inside that castle ever since. But the most famous ghost story around the castle's got one other ingredient for the ghost story, the other ingredient being Steep Hill just over there. Now, before we started the ghost walk, no one asked me the usual question, and that is, are we going up and down Steep Hill tonight? And the answer is always the same, no, I'm very sorry, because that would quite simply kill me. So we're not doing that. But in 1991, a man younger and fitter than myself was marching up Steep Hill. It was 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. He was a baker. He'd just done 6 long hot hours in a bakery, and he was heading home to his nice warm bed. As he walked past the Magna Carta pub just over there, which was locked down and shut down, he said the whole area was as quiet as a grave. When a very loud noise made him jump, he looked over his shoulder and saw the strangest thing he'd ever seen. Coming through the central archway all the way over there was the outline or form of a massive black horse. Think Shire horse or war horse. As the animal galloped across this square with such force and such speed, where the metal shoes on the horse's hooves were coming down hard against the cobblestones, sparks were coming up. The animal came to a sudden but skidding stop between these 2 cannons right here, and that's when our friend said he could see a figure laying across the back of the horse, a figure or rider. Now the rider, slowly, painfully slowly, began to stand up in the stirrups. Once he stood fully upright, he then said very loudly and very clearly, "Open the gates in the name of the King." Now, if you've been here at 3 or 4 in the morning, a bit like right now, these gates are locked, and no one goes in and no one comes out. But the rider appeared to get some kind of silent response, an answer that nobody else could hear. He sat down properly upon the horse, he gathered the reins, he whipped them as hard as he could do, and the rider and the mount continued towards these gates, gathering speed. Upon reaching the locked gates, they both just melted away into the night air. Now, our friend is still standing all the way over there, and he can't quite believe what he's just seen. So he goes home, he crawls into bed, and he keeps the whole thing a secret.
Well, he knows some stories, Sharon, doesn't he?
He does, doesn't he?
And don't forget, this was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Here, look at this, folks, look. Look at that at night, look. What a grand building, isn't it? We're making our way over here now, into this little courtyard area, Sharon. Where is he? I've lost him.
I don't know. We'll hear him in a minute.
I thought there would be 1 or 2 people.
I did, actually.
But I didn't think there'd be a whole mass of people
I
like
suppose
this.
it's nearly Halloween, and look at that monstrosity.
I know, I've seen it, yeah. We saw that on someone else's video, didn't we? Whose was that?
Silly, I don't know.
He was watching another video. Oh, it was that Charlie Veach come here, didn't he? He come to Lincoln the other week. Or this week, probably. Right, let's have a little wander through. It's a bit brighter now, isn't it? Over here.
So we have got a rather small building, this little church here behind me, and this has been demolished about 3 times in its history, down to civil wars and civil unrest and that kind of unfortunate situation. It's got 3 saints protecting it, St Mary Magdalene with St Paul's and St Michael's of the Mount, so it's quite a long title for a little old church. And Lincoln Historical Society do have a theory that underneath this building sits the original site of worship as it predates the cathedral. But the clergy aren't so keen on archaeological digs, so there's nothing in the diary just yet, but they are hopeful and optimistic for the future. Now, speaking of amazing architecture, just around that corner is a fantastic building called the WWII Hart Hotel. So please do raise your hand if you're staying in the WWII Hart Hotel tonight. That makes my job so much easier. That's great news. Now, the WWII Hart Hotel, don't get me wrong, it's the top end of 3 stars. It can be 3 stars because they can't change the internal structure of the building. It's a listed building. But it's a grade A weddings venue. It has an amazing award-winning restaurant, a fantastic cocktail bar and a sort of coffee shop area, some very attentive staff. But of course, you're not here for hotel reviews, you're here for ghost stories. And the previous manager that worked there decided, for whatever reason, to collect as many ghost stories at the WWII Hart Hotel as he could find. Then one dark evening, he sat in a small office room by himself, and with a stiff drink, a nice clean A4 sheet of paper, and his best pen, he wrote down as many ghost stories as he could fit onto one side of the A4 sheet. He got to the bottom, 9 or 10, and thought, I'll keep the rest for another time, and then drew some spooky drawings around the outside margin area, and this piece of paper made the WWII Hart Hotel the most documented haunted property in the whole city. If you'd like your own copy of that piece of paper, all you need to do is pop into the reception and just ask the receptionist, have to stay there or be eating there. They'll quite happily hand you this piece of paper over free of charge so you can do your own kind of ghost walk around the WWII Hart Hotel. Now, I'm not going to do all 9 or 10 stories because we'll be here all night long on the WWII Hart Hotel, but I will choose a couple of my favourites. If you're staying there by yourself on your own as a single occupant, and they put you in a room on the very top floor, that's like the honeymoon suite or the bridal suite, I would recommend you ask for a room somewhere else in the property. One room on the top floor has been nicknamed by the staff themselves the sad room. And that's because if you're in there overnight by yourself on your own, you may hear bumps in the night, creaking floorboards, whispering voices. But the reason for this strange nickname is this overwhelming sound that grows in volume as the evening moves on. And there's a sound of sobbing, weeping and crying that appears to come through the wall from the room next door. Now, people in the room next door get a great night's sleep, not a peep, not a murmur. People in that room, I've been told by the receptionist, when it's a busy season, they get about 1 or 2 phone calls a week from that room in the very kind of British style of, I'm not complaining, you understand. I just think you should be aware that people in the room next door are having a terrible time of things. I've got tea. I know it's 2 in the morning, but I'll be fine. No need to worry about me. Now, that person will normally get like a free breakfast or half a day in the spa, because if you do complain, they will look after you. My other favourite story, and this one young girl that started working at the WWII Hart Hotel when she was sort of like 12 or 13. She got sort of 16, 17 years old, when they discovered in the basement a massive nest of rats. Now, the rat catcher was called in, a man in his mid to late 30s, and he was doing his job, and every now and again he'd bump into this young girl, and he took a bit of a shine to her. So he'd say, how you doing? Are you all right? As things, as a family, you're good? And that went from that to, do you fancy going for a walk in the park with a chaperone, or maybe out for a meal with a chaperone? Chaperones were a big deal in those days. And she would always politely decline, but this got so awkward, that kind of awkward office romance that only one person's enjoying, that she would kind of avoid him when she saw him in the building. Now, eventually, the last rat was dead, and the last paycheck was given to the rat catcher. His contract, you might say, was over. So with his heart breaking in two, he left the WWII Hart Hotel, he walked into town, he found a tavern, and he sat behind the bar, he started spending his last paycheck, and the landlord saw a man with a massive pile of money and quite a thirst on him. So he would entertain him, chatting away, getting him some nibbles, making sure he's looked after, hopefully spend all that lovely money. And after a while, the story came out. Oh, she's gorgeous, I loved her. She didn't even know who I was, it was so upsetting. And the landlord said, look, I'm not being funny, sir, but you're a man with means. You've got your own job, you've got your own income. If you were to ask for a lady for a hand in marriage, she would be a fool to turn you down. So filled with bad booze and alcohol, and even worse advice, the rat catcher returned late that night to the WWII Hart Hotel. Now, we don't know what happened next, and that's what the judge said in the court case. We believe that when you met up with her on the second floor landing, and she declined your proposal, you decided if you couldn't have her, no one was going to have her. And that's why you pulled out your knife, and you stabbed her 10 times in that corridor, and you killed her outright. What you see, like the receptionist has seen, is that same girl on her knees, with her hands over her face, covered in blood, wailing, waiting for the last and final killing blow to come down, and there's just a sort of very brief moment where the candle of her life was snuffed out. She's just there instantly screaming, and then she's gone again, and which is why the receptionist does not cross that corridor by herself or even in company. But we are now going to make our way through the amazing archways just here, through towards the cathedral, and sort of hang to the right-hand side, so please do follow me when you're ready. So you may have missed it, but there's a rather large building right behind you. It's called St Mary's or Lincoln Cathedral, and it starts its history in 1072. So the timeline around here, as at school, we had Battle of Hastings 1066, 1068 the castle was constructed, in 1072 William the Conqueror is sat inside on a throne inside the castle when one of his aides comes over and says, William, because that's his name, we've had a proposal put forward by some of the nobles here in Lincoln. They would like to help fund the building of a cathedral here in Lincoln City. And he says, well, that's a lovely idea. Where were they thinking of putting it, mon ami? He says, well, across the way from the castle, just over there. And William said, you mean where the fishing lake is, the marshland, and the end of the Roman aqueduct? And his aide said, yes, your grace. And he said in a very cool French way, I'd like to see you try, which I can't do. So 1072 became 1092. A man called Bishop Regimus gave 20 whole years of his life to building phase 1 of the cathedral that we have today. They came to the big, wonderful, happy day, the grand opening, but sadly, Bishop Regimus had died 2 days before the grand consecration, the big opening. So to do him justice and tell you lovely people, I'd like to show you where his cathedral sits in what you can see tonight. So if you look at the front of the cathedral and follow my words and use your imagination. If you don't have imagination, just stand next to someone who does. So the first thing to do is take the central archway, the tall one, the middle one, the pointy one, and squash it down. So now it's as tall as the two smaller archways either side of it. Around these three archways, you may notice the plain flat brickwork in the lower section of the cathedral. It forms a kind of rectangular, horizontal shape. Hold on to the plain flat brickwork and get rid of all the spires, the towers, the cornices, the carved stuff, and the approximate size of the cathedral, just there, is how big the cathedral was in 1092. From humble beginnings they began. And it is said in the Bible that perfection is not in the hands of common man, it's in the eyes of the Lord. So if you've got OCD, strap yourself in. Symmetry does not play a great role here. The lack of symmetry can be seen by the two main towers. The left-hand tower, the bottom third of the main left-hand tower, has three arches with arrow slits. Right-hand tower, the bottom third, has two windows. Every tower had a spire, and the main tower and the main spire stood together for 234 years, and it was the tallest building in the world for that time. But the next ghost story is not about the cathedral. It's about what's underneath your feet. Everyone looks down. And what's behind me just here, this rather small but equally terrifying little building. This has been many things in its life. It's been a family home, it's been a shop, it's been offices. But in the mid-90s, it was the office building that was for the tourist information. And I met many people that worked here. And one chap I met in particular told me his stories, and here's my favourites. He said one Monday morning, it was appraisal week, that time when you have an interview for the job you've already got. And he said he came to work nice and early on Monday morning with his cleanest suit on. These are his words, not mine. He got himself a coffee, went to a small office room, kind of one small office room per person. He sat behind his desk, he put his coffee cup down, switched the computer on, did some computery things, and then went to the coffee cup, find the coffee cup was sort of rattling. He started to rock from side to side and the coffee sloshed around. And then he said he always got goosebumps when he talked about this moment. He said the coffee cup shot up in the air, it turned on its side and came down so hard, he was surprised the whole thing hadn't shattered into thousands of pieces. He said it was great news for the coffee cup, it wasn't so much good news for him. He sat behind his desk with sort of coffee running through his hair and down his face and across his white shirt, when his boss walked into his office and said, "Good morning," and just assumed he was having some kind of mental breakdown, which wasn't the impression he was trying to make. He said sometimes you could be on the phone, you could be doing some work, talking to a colleague, with a massive gust of wind would roll through the room, paper would go up in the air, and everywhere you dash on, trying to get the paper and shoot on these sash windows, to slam the sash window shut, to find the sash window was already shut. He said that was quite strange. Now these next words are his words, not my words, so I do apologise. He then told me that the girls who worked here would refuse to go in the basement beneath your feet unless in groups of 2 or 3 they found it oppressive, uncomfortable and scary down there, and not just because of all the spiders, which is enough for me personally. Now when they moved out, some archaeologists went down into that basement, they did an archaeological dig. On this side over here they found a Roman hypercourse, kind of an underfloor heating system from the Roman period. On this side over here they found a medieval wall. On one side of the medieval wall they found the physical remains of a man's body. On either side of the wall they found the physical remains of that same man's head, and actually wrote in their paper they believed the wall had been built upon his neck as some form of traditional but very cruel punishment from that period of time, which may explain why the building is still so active even today. Now, people take pictures on the Ghost Walk, and we have got the hot spots. Our first hot spot is right here. I'll show you where it is, because that's my job. So, it's a large sash window above my head right here. So that one just there. With all sorts of weird orbs and mists and figures in that window over the years. In fact, about 11 or 12 years ago, there was a 13-year-old lad on the Ghost Walk. He took his 3 pictures, and we're all walking off, and sometimes the kids run to catch up with me, and he had run to catch up with me, but he wasn't saying anything. So I just politely inquired, "Did you get anything on your pictures, on your phone?" And he sort of said, "I don't know, I haven't really checked yet." He wasn't possessed, he was just a teenager. So we had a look through, and the first picture is that window frame, but the bottom middle pane had a white cloudy shape in it. Second picture, same window frame, but the bottom middle pane, that white cloudy shape was sort of coming together into a circular form. And the third and final picture, same window frame, but the bottom middle pane now had a white face staring directly down into the camera lens.
Right, okay, that's a few pictures taken. Bit of fascinating information about the cathedral there. Didn't know any of that. So we've hung back a little bit now, people.
We're farther back.
Everyone was taking pictures at the same time there, but look at here, look at this, look. Let me just turn the camera around, look. Wow, look at that.
Amazing, isn't it?
How eerie does that look at night, Sharon?
Well, I don't think it's eerie.
Oh, it is, come on.
No, I don't think so.
You're not frightened?
Not by that, no.
I'm taking random pictures on my camera, folks, as we're going around as well, because I'm trying not to do it when everyone else is doing it, because
you could have done that window on the way back to the car.
Well, I probably will do. Now we know that's a window to look into.
That's if we go back that way, though, isn't it?
As you can see, everyone's marching ahead there. Look, as he said, I can imagine what this is like up here at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I know it's hustling and bustling at the moment, but it's definitely eerie, folks. I'm not going to record everything. This is about an hour and a half walk we're going to be doing here, folks.
Is it?
Yeah. Wow, listen to that, Shell. So spooky, isn't it? Oh, this is that little corridor, isn't it?
We have the judgment porch just over there. A man called Bishop Hugh of Avalon built that. He had that constructed. But sadly, when Bishop Hugh of Avalon came to die, there was a public outrage, because the only way to get a kind of promotion from bishop is to go one step up, and that promotion is saint. And that never happened while he was alive. So to make everyone very happy, they decided, the powers that be, to posthumously, after his death, they canonised him and made him from bishop to Saint Hugh. So everyone's very happy. They made this massive shrine, very colourful, very nice. On top of the shrine they placed a box, and the box was covered in gold and silver and gems and jewels. And the queen, the king, the lords, the ladies, and even the common folk like me came for the next 10 years to pay their respects to the shrine of St. Hugh. But after 10 years, two men did not appreciate the box for its spiritual value, but more for its financial value. And they hid away inside the cathedral. They went over to leave the building. They came out of their hiding place. It's gone midnight. They went into the angel choir. They climbed on top of the shrine and they grabbed the box. Now, underneath what's called a pressed confession, those guys had their confession extracted with thumb screws. And the first confession that was given went like this. They made their escape through the judgment porch just over there. He was one holding the box, the stolen box, underneath his tatty wrappings. And that would have been a cloak, a bit like mine. And as I was walking down here, they could feel something inside the box moving and shifting around. So he said to his friend, there's something in the box. And his friend said, with great confidence and aplomb, the box is covered in gold and silver and gems and jewels. There'll be loads more rich stuff inside the box. Put the box of the wall just here. I've got my knife, you get your knife. Let's get it open, let's see what we've really got. So after 5 long moments, the box did pop open, but they weren't met by the sight of gold and silver and gems and jewels. They were met by the rather stench of the rotting, severed head of St. Hugh of Avalon. The man's very personal space, his head, his thinking space, was inside the box and had been for 10 very long, gooey years. They sort of stuck there, took a step backwards and they cleared their lungs. If you're from Lincolnshire, you'll recognise the phrase gipping, and that's where you start going, and your friend says, don't look at me because I'll start, So they did that for a bit, and then they realised the box itself with the gold, the silver, the gems and jewels had a very high value. So they decided the contents of the box wasn't so desirable. One chap held the box down, he put his hands into the box, and he pulled and he pulled and he pulled and he pulled. Now I'd love to think with a very loud sucking noise, the head came away from the box. Now, there was patchy skin, patchy hair, eyes like gooey marshmallows, a tongue like a piece of black leather, very few teeth, a high moisture content, and a good number of maggots. But above and beyond all that, the smell was absolutely biblical. So they got rid of it by throwing it away down that hill, where it went boing, 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 splat, splat, boing, boing, splat, boing, boing, splat, boing, 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 splat, boing, boing, to be precise. It got wedged down the bottom there on the left-hand side where the wall and the archway meet. These two blokes were about to start celebrating when more or less that noise happened, the one we just heard from the cathedral. Some random person had walked around the cathedral in the early hours of the morning. He'd gone for a quick prayer at the shrine of St. Hugh, took a quick kneel and looked up and realised, shrine's nice, the box is missing. So he'd run through the cathedral like bells are ringing, grabbed the bell rope like Tarzan, and started pulling on the bell rope so hard he woke up the entire city. These guys grabbed the box and they ran, but it was no good. They were caught eventually. They were brought back to Lincoln, thrown inside the castle, thrown inside the prison. The thumb screws reappeared and the whole story starts all over again. Has left a kind of resonation, a vibration or a haunting down this hill. People who live down this hill often complain in the mornings to each other. They've been woken up yet again by that strange sound in the night, like a heavy leather ball bouncing down the hill. People who walk up and down this hill day and night sometimes experience a strange sensation, like a round heavy object hits them in the back of the knees, making it sort of pop out, and they have been known to fall flat on their faces. So we are going to carefully make our way down the hill. I'll tell a couple of stories and we'll carefully come back up again. So on that note, please carefully follow me.
This is the hill show.
So I've got a few things down here to look at. I've got a doorway just over here. That's an old burned down.
Imagine living here, knowing all that went on. You hear a leather ball shout, which is someone's head. This was hundreds of years ago. So all these are residential properties here, look. Either side.
Well, that looks empty, that one, though, doesn't it?
What? Yeah, it does look empty. We've heard that this hill was haunted. We have walked up here once, haven't we?
I don't know, actually. I've been here years and years ago.
Yeah, no, we come up here. We parked down the end there, remember? And there's a little... This is on the steep
You're
part.
over the other side
I
again.
might have got it wrong again, haven't I?
Yeah.
That's not what I was thinking of. Yeah, look at all these residences over here, people, look.
They're lovely looking houses.
Yeah, look.
But I bet they're haunted in there.
Well, of course they are, Shout. Everything here will be
Look
haunted.
at that old gate, look.
Yeah, I know. Oh, hello, he's stopping.
Whoop.
Careful.
I want to get up and it's more even.
So, you are the bravest people in the whole of Lincoln. We followed some weird rotund chap with a rather groovy cloak on down to what's essentially one of the most haunted parts of Lincoln. And we believe that is the case because not a lot has changed around here over the years. I know that I've just said that and there's a brand new building right behind you. And what was before that was some old prefab garages made of asbestos and some old scrubland. Now, when the Art College University decided to build this amazing incubation centre for business sort of like development, they had to put some foundations in quite deep down. There's rooms below the ground level. So when you put your foundations, your sort of building work that far down, you dig a hole in the ground that low down, little scuttling creatures start to appear with brushes, trowels, beards, knitwear, and sometimes crocs. And they're called archaeologists. But they found several Roman dwellings over there. They found Roman artifacts from that period. They also found carved little toys, counters and dice for children from the Roman period, which is amazing, but not too surprising, because you're standing above a Roman road right now. The archway down the bottom there is not a Roman archway. There were 2 Roman archways down there during the Roman occupation. They were twice the height, twice the width, covered in marble, and if you play a game called Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you can go and look at Lincoln from that time period because they recreate those archways in the game. It took me 32 hours to get that part of the game. But I'll do it again this weekend, it was great fun. But before computer games were even considered, a massive Roman legion marched through the valley just over there. Foot after foot, step after step, mile after mile, day after day. They would crush fields of corn, they would knock down small fences. They would move in uniform for miles and miles, and eventually they came to the Brayford Pool. That point in history was 6 times it is today because there was no drainage for it. They had the water rations, they had the food rations, and then those in command noticed this amazing hill just over here. And their small contingency was set up the hill to go and build a fort, and then they stayed there while 98% of the legion left. So they now manage a fort called Lindum Colonia. And Roman soldiers had no personal time, it was combat practice, marching practice, horse riding practice. And we think that marching practice is their favourite because people have come on the ghost walk and they've told us when they've walked up and down this hill in the wee hours of the morning, they've been quite startled and surprised to find up to and including 10 or more Roman soldiers march up and down this hill in formation. Now you'll know they're Roman soldiers because all you see of them is the heads and shoulders that are poking out of the ground because they're marching on the much lower Roman level of the city. Personally, if I came down here 1 or 2 in the morning looking for the bouncing head of St. Hugh, and I found 4 or 3 heads just poking out the ground, I would employ the professional technique of the runaway screaming method, because they've made the effort, why shouldn't I? Now sometimes you guys come on a ghost walk, you tell us your stories, and we know quite a few of them already, which is not us being smug, it's just the way things are. But sometimes the way you tell the stories is the better than the way we tell the stories. And about 15 years ago, when I first started doing this, there were 2 girls on the ghost walk, they're sort of mid to late 20s. It was a hot summer's evening, just the 3 of us, went out together, had a good laugh, a bit of a natter, and they're really happy, bouncing along, having a good chat and a bit of a giggle. And we got down here, and they changed. Their eyes were like saucers, their arms were crossed, their shoulders round their ears, they were whispering to each other on the backs of their hands, and I just assumed I'd said something inappropriate because I quite regularly do. So I said, was it me? And she went, oh no, love, it's not you, it's this area here. I said, well, what happened? They said, well, when they were studying to be teachers at Bishop Grotesque College, a teacher training college at the top of the hill, they got some good results for their coursework, and so they decided to go for a bit of a big night out. About 8:30, 9:15, sort of fashionably late, they decided to head into town and go and have themselves a bit of a pub crawl. Starting at the WWII pub, then working right to the Brayford Pool, kebab taxi, home, job done, fantastic night. And they're walking down here arm in arm, having a good old chat, a good old natter. They got to the cobblestones, looked down towards the archway, and coming through the archway towards them was a man dressed as a Second World War airman. He had the polished buttons on, the black polished shoes on, the handlebar moustache, the slicked down kind of greasy black hair, but he looked perfect. And as they approached him, they both nudged each other and said, I didn't know there's a fancy dress party tonight. And that made sense, and it was okay. And as they got closer to him, they could see his arms, his hands, his face were quite badly sunburnt. But it was a hot summer that year, so you weren't taking care of yourself. That made sense, it was okay. But as he approached them and they approached him, the girls had to unlink their arms and step aside so he could walk directly between them. Now that was very rude. It wasn't all right, it wasn't okay, it's just bad manners. So these girls decided to turn around and give this guy, shall we say, some advice. And as they turned around to give him the advice, when he should have been about 2 meters up the hill behind them, he was nowhere to be seen. They scanned the area, they couldn't see him anywhere. The high heels came off. They ran down this hill, ran down Lindham Hill, they ran halfway down Broadgate, took a sharp left-hand turn in the open doors and arms of the amazing WWII pub, where they had several large brandies each to calm their nerves. What had happened in 1942, on the 19th of July, a Hampden bomber had returned from a mission during the Second World War. Hampden bombers were called by the RAF tadpoles, a big front end carrying lots of munitions, a short back tail. And this one was returning from laying mines by the East Coast. Now the mystery is, no one knows whether it was pilot error or pirate choice, or whether it was the actual odometer and the height meter that was wrong, but that aeroplane flew at full speed into the stairs on the opposite side of the archway right down there. As it hit the ground, it was so hard and so fast, it exploded on impact, which killed all the crew members instantaneously. And now they wander around here still trying to find their way home, when sadly, they have no homes to go to. Now some ghosts are called guardian ghosts. They protect me and you, the living. It's not all Hollywood scary. Some are there to look after us and make sure that we live and we're okay. And the one guardian ghost we have down here stands over there next to what we call the drunken lamppost on the far side down there. And he basically stands there. He wears a big black sun hat, a cloak like mine, and he's dressed in the style of a French priest or pastor. If you ever walk past him, all he'll do is raise his hand and wave at you, or just smile and nod his head. He'll make sure that you know he knows you're there. In the records we can find of the last few hours of his life, he was seen being very miserable, very low, very sad, very glum, crying under a tree at the top of the hill. And then some hours later he was found down here, hanging from the light fitting above the archway just over there by a length of rope, very cold and very blue and very dead. Now he appears in spirit form just by the lamppost, meters from where he passed away, to those people who walk down here who feel low or glum or sad or miserable or depressed. And he appears for just those people, so if they choose the same foolish thing he chose to do all those years ago, there's at least somebody else down there to sort of maybe help them sort of think it's not a great idea, so they don't do the foolish thing he chose to do all those years ago. That, or he just scares the trails off you so you run away screaming. Either way, no one's hanging themselves down there, and that's the most important part of the whole story. We get most of our pictures from this area down here, around the lamppost, around the archway, and this area here is the hottest of our hotspots. So please do take some pictures down there, see what you can catch. I shall bravely wait for you here, then we'll pop back up the hill for one more story before we all head home.
So this is that area here, look. Greenstone Terrace. That's the lamppost he was just talking about. Looks a bit eerie down there, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Can you imagine living here, Sharon? Look, one of these houses here, look.
No thanks.
Isn't it?
They're very beautiful, but not for...
the tunnel there. So that plane would have crashed the other side of there. Full speed, just over there. What's that like?
Can't
Unbelievable,
imagine
isn't it?
it, could you?
Let's just have a little look down
What
there.
a
Come on.
noise.
Let's take a walk down there, just have a little look. Well, it looks a bit eerie, doesn't it? Well, look at that. 4 o'clock in the morning, shall
No,
Yeah?
thank you.
4 o'clock in the morning.
No.
Let's go through here, look. Wow. This is the most haunted part in Lincoln, folks. Yeah, this is the part we went to before, Sharon.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not going all the way down the bottom.
No,
am
no,
I?
I'm just going to turn around here. So that plane would have come flying this way, and it would have smashed into that there, look. Hasn't it? Ooh, bit of a jitter there.
That archway there,
Hey?
look. That archway.
Yeah, there's so many of these archways you can't see it in the water. It's been cut away, look. That's amazing. I'm just going to take a few pictures, shall I? Well, there you go, folks. We've just finished the ghost walk.
Yep.
It lasted about an hour and 20 minutes. Do something a bit sensible if you're coming out in the cold evening. Wear a coat. I forgot mine, but
Oh, put a long coat on.
yeah.
So my legs are freezing.
there's not normally this amount of people here. He said it can be sort of 3 to 4 people. So it would be a
I
lot
blame
more.
Halloween.
It will be a lot more eerie. But also, he said there's 4 or 5 of them that do this, and they've all got their own distinctive style. So his style is his style. You got one who does sort of Victorian and Shakespearean. So it depends on what one you get. Probably do different days of the week. I'm not too sure how you find out who's hot, but what a fascinating tour. We haven't shown you actually everything in
No,
this.
it's very interesting.
So I mean, it's the sort of thing where we would do it again.
Yes.
Because you wouldn't have such a massive group of people
Do it
here.
on a different night for a different person as well.
And they're going throughout the week, as I say, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Did you say Sunday as well,
No,
Sharon?
bank holidays.
Bank holidays.
Yeah.
Well, hope you've enjoyed that, folks.
Yeah.
We'll have a look at the pictures now to see if we have spotted anything. So let's check out what the pictures I've took, see if we can find any apparitions. And if you do see something, leave it in the comments below.
Yeah, there could be something behind us while we're
Oh,
walking.
don't say that, Sharon, for God's sake.
Yeah. Look at me, I'm brave tonight.
You are brave, I'm all telescopic, Sharon.
I'm like next to the church, I'm all right.